everybody, Raul here for Bass Musician Magazine, and today we have the extraordinary honor of chatting with bassist Ross Schodek. Yay!
How's it going?
Yeah, outstanding, Ross, outstanding, Ross. Well, one of the big reasons that I wanted to talk to you is because most recently I had a chance to listen to Poncho Sanchez's most recent album that came out. This is Poncho Sanchez and his Latin band live at the Belly Up Tavern, recorded June 11th, 2023. And always been a huge fan of Poncho's, but this is another mind-blowing bit of recording. I was especially impressed how clear and concise it was, considering it's a live venue, which
Sure.
that doesn't happen often. So of course that made me want to talk to you, and because you are on bass here, and we'll definitely want to talk about that. But let's go to the past. How did you get started on music and particularly on bass?
Well, originally, I guess I started in middle school, sixth grade, I guess, on trombone, and played trombone up and up until the beginning of college. I played it all through high school and then started in college. But it was in, I guess, the end of my freshman year of high school that picked up electric bass and started playing electric bass in the jazz band at the high school. And then I just kept doing just kept going. Went to college, started studying music. I was doing bass and trombone, and then I was never that good at trombone, partly because I didn't love it as much as I love bass.
Mhm.
And I just decided, okay, I'm just going to focus fully on bass. And I guess somewhere around my senior year of high school, I started studying upright
Okay.
with a jazz bass player in Houston, and that was my first experience on upright. And then obviously once I got to college, that became more of the main focus. So
Gotcha. Well,
yeah,
and traditionally, so much with upright is either jazz or classical music.
right,
And so it's kind of interesting how much of it can be involved in mainstream. When I get a chance to talk to like the bluegrass players, or when
sure,
we get a chance to talk to the Latin jazz. I'm using my air quotes here because there's a
yeah,
lot of upright, and that's where Poncho falls in.
yes,
So you pursued these studies. You're originally from Texas, but then you relocated to LA, where it's a happening scene. There's a lot of demand, and you're working freelance. Although you have played, again, you're playing with Poncho. You've been playing with Nikki Corbett. You've been playing with the Gay Jennings Quartet, and I'm sure a lot more that
I'm
goes
I'm
without mentioning.
I'm just a freelance musician around town. Yes,
There you go.
yeah, and there's another Cuban band I play with called Estilo de Gracia that we have an album that's being mixed as we speak, but that's another main focus of mine. So, and then yes, just whatever any other, however we pay rent,
There we go.
So
Nice.
yeah.
Well, and it's kind of interesting because especially with the Latin, again, I have a bit of background. I lived out of the country for 18 years in Puerto Rico. So I've been
Okay.
exposed to a lot of that kind of music. And it had always seemed to me rather intuitive when you hear how the bass works with the percussion, because again, you always have a pretty solid percussive section, whether you've got conga, bongo, timbales, sometimes a full drum kit, sometimes minor percussion like cowbell and all this stuff. And so it seemed, I guess growing up with it, it just seemed to fit. I got so used to being there. But coming
Sure.
back to the United States, I have often found that musicians that weren't raised in it have found it challenging to find the step in,
Sure.
and
Sure.
and kind of catch that swing. So
Yeah.
how did you pick that up?
It was early on, my first maybe year or so in college. I had a friend who was a drummer who really started to introduce me to the Latin styles and kind of Latin jazz going around town, and we started going out and seeing stuff. But I took some lessons with his teacher who was a drummer, and quickly realized the main thing I wanted to do, I wanted to learn what all those parts were from the percussion standpoint. Because
Yes.
otherwise I'm just hearing it just sounds like a bunch of noise. So I took, some lessons with percussionists and learned the conga pattern, learned the mumble bell pattern, learned just all the little bits so that I could, listen to something and focus in and pick that out and understand
Yes.
what was going on. And then through that drummer, I met a bass player who was Puerto Rican. He's from New York, Puerto Rican, who was a bass player living in Houston, who became my teacher for several years. And he just throw recordings and here's Fania, here's Caballo, here's Cuban, here's just whatever. You just go transcribe this, go learn this. So
Yeah.
and that's where I really and then after studying with him for a while, he started sending me on salsa gigs. And I would show up at salsa gigs and have no clue what I was doing and just fall on my face and lose what was going on and all that. But eventually you start to just kind of get more into the zone and finally, as that teacher told me one day, he just said, just keep doing it. One day it'll just click. It'll just make sense. And I don't know when that day was, but I feel like it kind of did at one point. Like, oh, okay, I get it. So
Well,
yeah.
without question, having listened to this album, it definitely clicks because Poncho, he's unconventional from the point of view is that he likes to play with a lot of the Afro-Antillian time signatures, including a 6/8, which just
Mhm.
always blows me away. Again, for me, they're almost intuitive because I've heard them
Sure.
so just in my surroundings that you go, oh, there's bomba, there's plena, there's this Afro-Antillian dance thing, blah blah blah
Mhm.
blah. But they're foreign. I want to say to maybe the European school when you look at again classical or even jazz where there's a lot of 4/4 straightforward, and I've even had difficulties when I've played with other percussionists to get them to catch that swing because they're so I'm like this isn't a German march, this is a samba. You've got to
Sure.
you've got to work it different.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about amongst ourselves a lot that it's very much a misnomer to say that Latin music is straight eighth music.
Oh no.
It's not. It's not straight. It's accented. It has a swing. It's a different swing than jazz swing, but it
Mhm.
has a swing, and you have to understand that. You can't. Yeah, you can't just be regimented. Everything has to be. No, that's not the way it works. That's not music. So
Absolutely. So one of the things I'd noticed, and especially having seen some of the videos with you playing with Poncho, you're upright player, but I've seen you have a baby bass. I've seen you had it looked like an interesting kind of electric upright.
yeah,
And
yeah, it's an Azola bug bass is the brand name. He's no longer in business, but he made some fantastic basses. He got a bass in San Diego here.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's that's been the my workhorse bass. That it's nothing compares to the actual baby bass sound. Just nothing really does that. But this bass is it's a lot lighter to carry around. It's more convenient to use. It's easier to keep up. So that's the main reason. I have my Ampeg baby bass. I just haven't used it in a while.
There you
So
go. Well, and they're so different from the point of view of also sonically because
yes,
the electric and the baby bass they don't really resonate
no,
because there's no cavity.
no,
A lot of times it's fiberglass over
right,
over
yeah,
something else, and it relies on the electronics the way electric basses rely on their electronics.
sure,
So it solves one problem, which again a lot of upright players run into, is how do I capture my sound
hmm
whether it's two microphones at 45-degree angle 3 feet away or start with the loop in a Fishman or a combination of
oh yeah,
a piezo and a mic or how am I going to capture this. The electric basses solve that to a great extent and they allow you to be a little more mobile as well because again if you
sure,
kind of get in the swing of things not like you're going to really be dancing like the horn section might but still you have a little more mobility there.
yeah.
What other components do you involve with your sound chain and how are you getting your sound?
Kind of famously, I'm not a pedal guy. I'm not. I don't use a lot of coloring on anything. It's straight into the amp and EQing on the amp. The Zola in particular, it's very mid-rangey. Just straight out of the box, it's very mid-rangey. So it's cutting a lot of mid-range, boosting the bass and lowering the treble, and gets to the sound I'm looking for. And then if I have the amp that I want, because not all amps are going to be able to provide the punch that it needs. So
Got you. And you predominantly still like to play with an amp on stage versus kind of shooting it to the front of house or
very much so, yeah. Yeah, I'm very, very old school that way. Yeah. So
Nice. Well, and
yeah.
if you had your preference of amp, what do you like to use? What do you have at home?
Mark bass is the way I go nowadays. I still have some GK. I've been a GK guy for a long time, but I bought a Mark bass a couple of years ago and fell in love with it. So, but Mark bass, Aguilar, or GK, I'm happy. So,
Perfect.
yeah.
Well, and the great thing about them, and again, Mark Bass was very innovative at dropping weight, and
Oh yes.
that's been a big thing for especially as we bassist age that you
The
start
older the
doing.
older I get, how much is that weigh? How much space does it take up? How easy is it to carry?
Yeah,
Even some because some can be light, but they're still bulky. They're awkward. So yeah, it's a consideration for sure.
absolutely. And the versatility because you've got players like your upright players, but Marcus, Alain Caron. I mean, a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of there's a lot of really diverse Mark Bass players, and so the sounds they've done a really great job with that.
Sure.
And so I know you're freelancing and doing a lot of things, but looking ahead, what projects do you have in the works? Do you have more stuff going on with Poncho? What's going down?
I mean, Poncho, we played the other night. Today, yes, today would be Cal Jader's 100th birthday.
Wow.
Uh, and that was, Cal was Poncho's first main gig. He played with Cal for 7 years. So Monday night we played and we did uh, minus one tune. I think we did a whole night of Cal Jader music
Wow.
as a tribute. And but now, Poncho's kind of decided. Poncho picks and chooses what gigs he wants to do.
Sure.
He's earned that right by all means. So we still play several times a month, uh, but it's not going on the road the way he used to.
Gotcha.
So um, yeah, then the other thing, Estilo Gracia is the other project that I've been working with probably the most. We play every Wednesday night here in Hollywood. Um, and we have an album coming out soon. It's, like I said,
Nice.
it's being mixed, but it's in the works. And then yeah, the Yay Innings Quartet is the other thing. The only catch with that one is the leader is Jay Jennings. He's the trumpet player. He plays with Snarky Puppy amongst other groups. And the problem is he's just busy. So and so we only get to play a few times a year, maybe uh, as that quartet, particularly. But we always look forward to getting together and doing that. Um, yes, other than that, it's literally just freelance work, doing jazz gigs, big band gigs, private parties, clubs, just whatever.
You're in the
It's
hustle.
oh
Well,
yes,
and kind of coming back also to some of these, I guess my question would be how much creative license do you have in your bass lines, or do they spill it out? I know back traditionally growing up in Puerto Rico, a lot of these concepts were like, okay, find a line that goes with this, and you had to come up with whatever you were going to do.
sure.
How does that work with what you're doing?
I mean, Poncho is very open to as long as it fits into the style of his band.
Hmm.
I am free to do whatever I want. Now, I take that upon myself as I have to know where that line is of like it's like, oh, that was too much. Oh, that maybe don't try to do that. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's like once I said, some things that work in certain situations don't work with this band because this band has a sound and aesthetic that you know work into.
Hmm.
But even going into the gig, obviously you go back and listen to all the classic recordings, and that's Tony Banda on almost everything. Rene Camacho, who took over for Tony, is on a couple of albums. Of course, you go and you learn those. You learn
Yeah.
how they approached it, especially Tony. Tony was he's the sound. He was the man.
Nice.
So But even then, when you listen to, live recordings of him, you hear how he would push it sometimes. Like, oh, okay, like he wasn't, just locked into this one thing. It's just all about respecting the music, respecting the leader, respecting the band that you're with.
Hmm.
So,
Nice.
uh,
Well, and I do find that it was, especially as a general media, it is also. I always think of street music because that's how when we grew up we'd get together just out in the street and play.
sure.
And a lot of times it would just be you'd start with a concept and you'd kind of do your bit, and then on famous bands like when it was Fania or any of those were
Hmm.
just that was pretty solid how what choices they'd made and how that
Sure.
was going to have to sound. So
Sure. Sure. Sure.
very nice. Well, and if people, because you've got so much stuff going on, if people want to know what you're up to, where you're going to be, if they want to hear you play, where's the best place for them to look?
Instagram. My Instagram, it's R Schodek, RSCHODEK. That's where everything will be posted. I do have a website. I don't keep up with it very well. So, I mean, there's information on there, but I don't post, gigs on there. So Instagram would be more,
Most current.
the most current stuff. Yes.
Excellent. Well, and again, if you're busy playing music, you shouldn't be spending your time updating your website all
I
the
mean,
time.
it's all part of the nasty circle of things you got to do to survive in this business. So,
Gotcha. Well, Russ, we appreciate you taking time from your very busy schedule to chat with us and sharing your insights on this music and all the stuff that you've been doing. Folks, make sure you check out, again, this album is just one sample of what Ross does. And as always, I'm thrilled to listen to it time after time after time. So, folks, you've seen him here on Bass Musician Magazine, Ross Schodek. Yay.
thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.